السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله الكبير المتعال ذي العزة والجبروت والجلال، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه والآل. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقال الرسول يا رب إن قوم اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا. صدق الله العظيم. Honorable scholars, respected brothers, much has been said, will be said, and should be said about using this last stretch now of about a week to prepare for the great month of Ramadan. Allahumma sallimna li Ramadan. The one thing though that doesn't often get adequate emphasis is about being mentally prepared, aligning your mindset with what the true objective and the true goal of Ramadan should be. As people are preparing themselves in various ways, physically, emotionally, spiritually, the one thing that very few of us actually focus on, and all of us need to focus on, is how will I use Ramadan to become and then remain a better Muslim. When we think of Ramadan, we think of, I got to fast, Tarawih, Qur'an, dhikr, charity, i'tikaf. I got to do these things. And indeed for those things, Allah will inshallah reward us very handsomely. But how many of us actually see this as a season of change? As an opportunity to come closer to Allah, not only for 30 days, but to remain closer to Allah thereafter. As an opportunity to improve ourselves and then to remain improved. The wisdom, the rationale, the philosophy behind Ramadan is that every Ramadan must bring you closer to Allah and keep you closer to Allah. And over a period of your lifespan, every Ramadan would have made you a better Muslim, a better servant of Allah. The tragedy is that we see Ramadan as a stipulated, specified period in which we need to earn reward. And indeed we have to earn reward. But that's not the main objective. The main objective is to attain the closeness of Allah, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And for that added and enhanced level of taqwa to remain with you. Not necessarily in the form of quantity, but in the form of quality. You won't be fasting 30 consecutive days in any other month of the year. You won't be able to read perhaps as much Qur'an because the climate is not there. You won't be able to do as much dhikr. You won't be able to spend as much time in the masjid as you did during the month of Ramadan. But in terms of the quality of your heart and in terms of the quality of your relationship with Allah, you must be better off after Ramadan. Not that for 30 days we put the pause button on our wrong deeds. We put the boost button on good deeds, only for us to go back to our same spiritual condition post-Ramadan that we were in prior to Ramadan. Then we've achieved the reward of Ramadan, but we haven't achieved the benefit of the great month. So, the mindset that this is a season of change. I must approach this month with an eye that this is an opportunity for me to become a better Muslim. The scholars tell us you require 40 days to break a bad habit, and you require 40 days to develop a good habit. Now when I talk about 40 days, I'm not going to make the scheme, you can rest easy. You have 40 days plus between now and the end of Ramadan. You can break a bad habit and you can develop a good habit that can remain with you thereafter if your intention is there. If your intention is only to stop for the stipulated period, then you'll only stop for the stipulated period. So the greatest preparation is to give up sin. Most Muslims will fast the 30 days. Most Muslims will do what is obligatory to do. But very few Muslims will abstain from sin. Even though the devil is shackled, because we sin out of habit. He no longer needs to prompt us. So after making this niyyah, that I'm not just going to search for reward, but I'm searching for a change to my life, to become a better Muslim. The first thing you do is to give up sin. The second thing you do now is to generate some momentum. You can't just start on the first day. By the time you find momentum, you're already halfway, if not 3/4 way into the month. So in all of the activities that you are going to be carrying out during the month of Ramadan, start building the momentum now. And I want to focus on one of those activities as part of my discussion. And that is Qur'an. There is a link between fasting and Qur'an. Allah Himself emphatically says, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month of Ramadan wherein we reveal the Qur'an. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر. It was on the night of power in the month of Ramadan that the Qur'an was revealed. There is a link between fasting and revelation. When Musa alayhi salam received the Torah, Allah says, وَوَاعَدْنَا مُوسَى 30 لَيْلَةً. He had to fast for 30 days. وَأَتْمَمْنَاهَا بِعَشْرٍ. Then Allah said, add 10 extra. 40 days. See, 40 days again. And then he got the Torah. Isa alayhi salam, he was fasting when he received the Injil. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam received the first revelation in the cave of Hira, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. At that time, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was also fasting. There is a link between fasting and revelation. I always give this example. You see this device? It means a lot if it's switched on. If it's switched on, you can make a call, you can receive a call, you can send a text, you can receive a text. You have the whole world in your palm if it's switched on. But if it's switched off, you can have the latest device, you can have the best network, you can have optimal connectivity, it means nothing. It means nothing. So when it comes to Qur'an, our intention and our approach to Ramadan should not only be, okay, I'm going to make so many khatams, or I'm going to listen to Qur'an in Taraweeh. That's the reward part of it. The benefit part of it. I'm going to use Ramadan as the foundation to develop a relationship with the Qur'an such that after Ramadan, the Qur'an is part of my daily life and routine. You see, when the Qur'an is part of the daily life and routine of a person, then you connect it to the network of Allah. And that network will not be compromised by load shedding, by a depleted battery, or by a faulty network. You want to see people frustrated? It's when the network is down. It's when the network is down. If you ever saw people disembarking from a flight, everyone is, they had that short period of no connectivity. They want to be connected. They want to be reconnected. They're walking out into the terminal, into the airport. They're not looking ahead. They're looking into the device. It's now a global phenomenon. Let the network go down for a few minutes and you see everyone frustrated. Everyone agitated. Because connectivity is so important to our material progress in the world that we live in today. So what about our connectivity with Allah? In a hadith it is mentioned, إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ حَبْلُ اللَّهِ. Narration of Tabarani. The Qur'an is the rope of Allah. It's hanging from the heavens. Allah has latched onto the one side. All that is needed now is for you to latch onto the other side and then you connect it to the network of Allah. You connect it to the network of Allah. And when you remain connected to the network of Allah, it doesn't cost you. Your data doesn't go down. Your bank balance doesn't diminish. Then, in the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Inna lillahi ahlina minan nas," that from amongst people there are those who are the special servants of Allah. And when Sahaba said, "Man hum ya Rasulullah?" Tell us who are these special servants because we want to be from amongst them. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ahlul Quran." He didn't say those who recite the Quran. No. He didn't say those who print copies of the Quran or those who adorn their shelves with the Quran. He said, Ahlul Quran, the people of the Quran. So your goal this Ramadan should not just be to read the Quran. It should be to become a person of the Quran. Ahlul Quran, الذين هم أهلك وخاصتك. They are then the special servants of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, the chosen servants of Allah. You should use Ramadan as an opportunity to establish a holistic and a sustained relationship with the Quran. I'm using two words, two operative words. Holistic, which I'll explain in a bit. Sustained meaning the Quran must not only be part of your life in Ramadan. Then if you go for Hajj, then on certain occasions, Friday or whenever, it must be part of your daily routine. You may not be able to do the same quantitatively, but the quality would be in the consistency. The quality would be in the consistency. So sustained. Coming back to the first of the two operative words, holistic. There are 7 dimensions to the relationship that we ought to have with the Quran. The first is reciting the Quran. Even if you don't understand. I'm not saying you shouldn't understand, I'm saying even if you don't understand. Because the words of Allah are so effective that it will nourish your soul even if you don't understand what you're reciting. It's not difficult to fathom. See, one is you go after Jummah now, you have a lunch, you're conscious, you know what you're eating, you're tasting it, you're enjoying it, and that's your meal. The other is, Allah forbid, you're in hospital, you're in a coma, but your body still needs nourishment. They're feeding you through a tube. You don't know that you are being fed, there's no taste, there's no enjoyment, but your body is getting the benefit nonetheless. So when you recite Qur'an, even if you don't understand, your soul is being nourished. That spiritual energy that you require, that contentment of heart and that happiness of soul, it needs recitation of the Quran. So that's the first of the 7. The second, to listen to the Quran. Reciting the Quran, for every letter you get 10 rewards. But Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as much as the Quran was revealed to him, from time to time he would say to Abu Musa Ash'ari, who had a beautiful voice, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, whom he himself taught the Quran to, that recite it, I would like to listen. The third dimension is proper pronunciation of the Quran. We wrongly assume that that is only for those who are going to be on the Musalla, for the Huffaz and for the Ulama. No, the Quran is a right over all of us. There's a standard. There's a standard. And you need to meet that basic standard. See, voice, tune, that's out of your control. But proper pronunciation, that is definitely within your control. You need to make some effort. You can't say, no, I'm too old, I'm too used to reciting in my own way. No, the Quran has a right. The Quran has a standard. You will find enough Huffaz who are willing to help you. It will take time. It will take time. But you've got to fulfill that haqq and that right of the Quran to recite it as it ought to be recited. وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنِ تَرْتِيلًا. The fourth is memorization of the Quran. Again, we think, well, if I didn't do hifz when I was young, then it's not for me. Generally, the Huffaz memorize the Quran when they are young, because to commit something to memory is easier when you are young. Your memory is more fresh. Your ability to retain is stronger. But there's no age limit to becoming a hafiz. And we see it from time to time, people in their 60s, 70s, 80s becoming hafiz. Recently, not too far away from here, a brother in his 40s graduated after doing hifz for 20 years. For 20 years. And he became hafiz. Now, sometimes the elderly tell us, Moulana, don't worry, man. I got a son, I got a grandson. He's hafiz, he'll take me to Jannah. I say, yeah, perhaps. But I mean, in this world, you don't say, my son got a house, I'll stay with him. You say, no, Moulana, make dua, I must be independent. Allah mustn't make me dependent, even on my own children. When it's even necessary for you now to stay with your children and grandchildren, you're very old, you're weak. No, I want to stay on my own. I want to be independent. So in the akhirat, you don't want to be independent. Why do you want someone else to take you? Why do you want to be the beneficiary of somebody else's privilege? Rather earn your own privilege and let others benefit from you. Now you may feel I'm old. Well, here's the glad tiding. Learn 1 line a day. Learn half a line a day. If you don't finish, the hadith tells us the angels will finish it for you in the grave. So that is the fourth right of the Quran upon us. The fourth dimension of a holistic relationship. The fifth, very important. Meaning. Remember what I said first? The Quran will benefit you even if you don't understand it. You must still recite it. Right? But that doesn't mean you shouldn't make an effort to understand it, because the Quran is Allah's love letter to humanity. Oh, what a tragedy it is for a believer to live his or her own life 60, 70, 80 years and you haven't understood the meaning of Allah's message? Now, we must understand the difference. The meaning of the Qur'an is not exclusive for the scholars. Interpretation of the Qur'an is a science. And that is exclusive to those who have studied the science. So if you want to interpret the Qur'an, meaning you start deducing rulings and masail, then go study the science. In the same way, you want to practice medicine, then go and study the science and qualify as a doctor. But to know about good health is not only for the doctors, it's for every believer, it's for every human, because it's your health. So to interpret Qur'an is for the scholars, to know the message of the Qur'an is for all of us. And today we don't have any excuse because the scholars have done works, authentic, reputable translations and commentaries in English, which doesn't give you a headache, like that Shakespearean thee thou English. Now it's good English, easy to understand. You've got it on an app. Every house must have one commentary of the Qur'an, not just adorning the shelves, but read it. Read it. Read a few pages every day in Ramadan to connect with the basic meanings of what is being recited. Learn as much as you can of the Arabic language, because there are many repetitive phrases about the greatness of Allah and the general reminders in the Quran. At least that, when you listen to recitation of the Quran, you will understand its meaning. That's the fifth. The sixth, to practice upon the Quran. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we know Aisha radiallahu anha's description, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ. When you saw him walking, talking, you saw his actions, everything was an exemplification of the teachings of the Quran. You would see the Quran radiate in his words and radiate in his actions. So Quran is not only for recital. As important as recital is, it's also for implementation. And the seventh is to propagate the message of the Quran. Think about it, right? You learn Surah Fatiha. You teach your son. He teaches his son. He teaches his son. And it continues. You'll long be gone from this world. You'll be a distant, if not total, forgotten individual. But the angels will continue to be writing reward because you propagated the Quran to the best of your ability. Whether it be the words of the Quran or whether it be the meanings of the Quran. So, let me just surmise up to this particular point. I was saying that we can't just approach Ramadan with the lens of how can I secure rewards. We must approach Ramadan with the view of how can I change for the better. How can I remain a better Muslim? Not put a pause button on my bad habits and a temporary boost button on good habits. And the day of Eid and the day after Eid, I go back to where I was spiritually. And in terms of my relationship with Allah. No. We must have this approach that every Ramadan must improve me as a believer. Make me a better Muslim. And I must remain such after the great month has passed. Because how many Ramadans have passed? Have we become better Muslims? It's for us to introspect. We will have to answer in front of Allah for this bounty. And then I narrowed down to this one action, the action of Quran, because there is the strong link between Ramadan and Quran. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. And there is the strong link, as I explained, between revelation and fasting. And the point I'm sharing with you today, that we need to have a sustained, a daily relationship with the Quran and a holistic relationship with the Quran. We must pivot around these 7 things. Reading the Quran, listening to the Quran, improving your recitation and pronunciation, memorizing, connecting with the meaning, practicing upon the teachings, and propagating the message. 7 elements to having a holistic relationship with the Quran, which is for every Muslim and Muslimah, not for scholars only, not for the Huffaz only. Now, if you develop that kind of a relationship with the Quran, not only will Allah elevate you in this world, but Allah will elevate you in the year after as well. Ahlul Quran, urafa'u ahlil Jannah. In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said, the people of the Quran will be the leaders of the believers in Jannah. Not only in this world. Umar radiallahu anhu used to give preference to the one who knew more Quran. He didn't look at your social standing, he didn't look at your financial standing. He looked at how much Quran you had. When he had to decide who gets the promotion and who doesn't. Who goes first and who doesn't. Quran was the criteria. Today, when it comes to our children, as long as he knows how to read Quran, that's enough. Then everything else he must be first. Quran he must be basic. Mediocre. That's it. My child must become Hafid. For that we got great enthusiasm. Will he live as a Hafid? Never really crossed my mind. Is he living his life as a Hafid? Is he upholding all of the obligations and the rights of the Qur'an? No, as long as I got him to the Jalsa, so I could say, box ticked. My son or my daughter is also Hafid. Whether he knows the Qur'an after that, whether he's reading the Qur'an after that, whether he's practicing upon the Qur'an, that is not so much of a concern to me. So I don't want to diminish the very wonderful phenomenon that we have in our community where we make our sons and our daughters Huffaz. I'm saying, is the objective just to get them to memorize? Or is the objective to make them Ahlul Qur'an? People of the Qur'an. You know, I say to my sons who are Hafid, mashallah, two of them, I say, you know, you read beautiful Qur'an. But if you had to live to see your great-grandfather, he couldn't read Qur'an like you. If you had to listen to his recitation, you would have to hold back the laughter. His pronunciation was all gum style, as they say. But he had such passion and dedication for the Qur'an. They say in English, come hail or snow, hell or high water. Every single day with dedication and steadfastness, he recited the Qur'an. We have more knowledge and we have more expertise, but they had more passion and steadfastness. And that's what's missing. Oh, it's wonderful, that our Huffaz, young boys and girls read with such fluency. When I read Taraweeh, they dig me nicely. They take out the mistakes. You're a short old man. We know a little more. And wonderful, alhamdulillah. We're proud of them. But how steadfast are they? How steadfast are we? And that's why I opted to choose this topic and to talk about it as we usher in, inshallah, Allahumma sallimna li Ramadan. May Allah make us see the great month of Ramadan. I'll just conclude with one or two thoughts. The one thing is, Uthman radiallahu anh used to say, if you want to know what is your condition in the eyes of Allah, then check what is the state of your relationship with the kalam of Allah. The stronger your relationship with Quran, the stronger your relationship with Allah. In English, someone very beautifully said, the Quran is that book, no matter where you read it, the author is present. The Quran is that book that no matter where you read it, the author is present. I'll add on a line and say that for believers, the Quran is that book that no matter who reads it, the author loves it. You know, any other book you read it, maybe the author is dead, maybe the author doesn't know you, maybe the author doesn't care about you. But the Quran is that book, when you have a relationship with the Quran, you are connected to the network of Allah. See, what is our objective? Is it Jannah? No. What is our objective? Allah. The pleasure of Allah. How do you reach Allah? And how do you obtain the pleasure of Allah? There are various ways. But what's the most quick and the most effective? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us, إِنَّكُمْ لَا تَرْجِعُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ بِشَيْءٍ أَفْضَلَ مِمَّا خَرَجَ مِنْهُ يعني القرآن. Nothing can bring you closer to Allah more quickly and more effectively than the Quran can. Develop that daily holistic relationship with the Quran. I'll leave you with this incident. Whenever I talk about the Quran, I must conclude with this incident. The greatest enemy of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Umar bin Khattab, he wants to kill the Nabi of Allah, the only man ready to take the life of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he's rerouted to his sister and brother-in-law's house. Without any intention, his ears fall upon the recitation of the Quran. طه ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى إلا تذكرة لمن يخشى. Until it comes to the verse where Musa alayhi salam is being told by Allah in the words of Surah Taha, إنني أنا الله لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدني. That, oh Musa, it's me, it's Allah, none worthy of worship besides me, worship me. The heart that was so hard that it wanted to commit the greatest murder that could ever be committed, it melts when he comes to the door at Dar Arqam and he knocks. They say, who is it? He says, Umar. Everyone is scared to open the door because they know his animosity towards Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hamza, who had just become Muslim the day before, he was the 39th Muslim. He opens the door, he says, Umar, what is it? He says, I've come to proclaim the Shahada. When he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, from the inner room, the Nabi of Allah is so ecstatic, he's so jubilant. He says, Allah has accepted my dua. Allahu Akbar. The Nabi of Allah starts screaming the takbir because Umar has accepted Islam. Ibn Mas'ud says, when Umar accepted Islam, now we make tawaf in public. When Umar accepted Islam, now we can perform salah in public. Umar was the 40th Muslim. The day he closed his eyes, He was second only to Abu Bakr. He didn't remain 40th. That Umar who wanted to kill the Nabi of Allah, by the miracle of the Qur'an, the Nabi of Allah himself said, لَوْ كَانَ بَعْدِي نَبِيًّا لَكَانَ Umar. If there was a prophet to come after me, it would be Umar. Today, non-Muslim Orientalist writers are saying, to solve the problems of the world needs an Umar. But that Umar was on his way to kill the Nabi of Allah. The Qur'an performed its miracle. I'm saying to you, brothers and sisters, allow the Qur'an into your daily routine. Then see how your problems will become manageable. Then see how Allah puts barakah in your home, in your relationships, in your business, in your sustenance. Then see how Allah gives calmness to your soul, and Allah gives distinction to your mind. Because the same Qur'an that took Umar from being a wannabe killer of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and turned him into the man who is now resting next to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who will be resurrected with Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who will be the eternal neighbor of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You and I can't go for Umrah. We can't go to Medina and just say Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Bakr. You can't leave until you say Assalamu alayka ya Umar, Assalamu alayka ya Umar. Oh, the man who wanted to kill the Nabi of Allah, but the words of Allah melted his heart, and today he's lying resting next to the Nabi of Allah. It's the same Qur'an, it's the same word of Allah. Allow it into your life and see it perform its miracles. May Allah grant me all of us the tawfiq wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barakatuh.